Aloha, I'm Joe Pardavila. You're listening to the Forbes Books Podcast, and today's CFOs are not your grandfather's chief financial officers. CFOs in 2022 are under greater scrutiny, internally and externally. They've got to cut costs, grow revenue, and ensure control, all while living in a world of economic uncertainty. And my guest this week is the CEO of Foresight CFO, where his growth CFOs work side by side with other CEOs to obliterate obstacles. His name is Kirk W. McLaren. Kirk, how are you?
Yeah, I'm doing great. Really glad to be here with you, Joe.
Well, thank you very much for taking the time. I know you're very busy. You got a lot going on. I mean, I don't speak to a lot of Georgetown University lecturers that are also entrepreneurs. So talk to me about this superhero dynamic of teacher by day, hero by night, or vice versa. Talk to me about your journey.
Yeah, so obviously, the full-time thing, decades of working with private companies. So that's what I do at Foresight, growth CFOs, working side by side with CEOs. So somewhere along the way, I had a really good friend, Tom Rogers. He was teaching the current position I have at Georgetown, and he was just getting too busy, and it was a long drive for him to get to Georgetown every week to teach. And so he asked me to come in and just take a look, Kirk, see what you think. And man, I love it. It's just a chance to these are mid-career professional graduate students, so it's a chance to really pass the torch and get them wherever they're at to the next step where they're using the numbers. They have that level of clarity and confidence. So I've been doing it now 7 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
And it's funny, the best leaders like to mentor, but being a professor or lecturer, that's a whole new level because instead of it being like, hey, Kirk, I got a few questions. Can we meet for coffee? And you've got to do a lot of homework and prepare on your end too, right? It's not as easy just being a mentor.
The first semester I taught, man, it was a couple days of preparation for one session, and it took a lot of time and effort. But then at some point, it's rinse and repeat. The habits of profitability, and at this point, minimal preparation, maximum return. So it just everything kind of has a cycle. So but at first it was not having the teaching experience. It was a jump into the hot water.
And getting to know you, I feel like you are all about preparation. And it's one of the sort of credos that I live by: preparation, concentration, and moderation. So talk to me about the preparedness piece. When did you discover the importance? And I know it's for some people be like, well, yeah, it's always good to be prepared, but like there's actually some sort of intentionality when it comes to preparedness. When did you discover the importance of that?
It had to be. I mean, I was I grew up in Houston. I was at Texas A&M, third semester. First Gulf War started. I joined the Army. The Army probably had a lot to do with prepare. I mean, make sure everything's. You can't go back to your house and get something you forgot. So that combined with the business experience, it's just literally measure twice. Really get clear on destination and that flight plan. Then the execution is that much better, and the small adjustments you make as you go are just easier. So it gives me a comfort level, peace of mind. Like you and I talked about doing a webinar. We had an initial conversation, and so I know more about what to expect, and it really does give me a comfort level where I can come in and just enjoy this experience with you.
I mean, a great example of that too, Kirk, is like football players. They spend all week for that 3 hours of a football game because drilling all that down deep into subconscious, once the whistle blows on 1 o'clock on Sunday, all of a sudden, all of that stuff you may not have literally remembered, but it's seeped in your brain that then you just let your body and your reflexes and your natural God-given ability take over at that point. Very similar to business is what it sounds like from your perspective, Kirk.
It is. I mean, there's a book, was it Malcolm, where he wrote the 10,000 hours?
Yeah, Malcolm Gladwell, sure.
Yeah, and so it's like the tightrope walker in the circus. It looks easy, but they got 10,000 hours of practice into it. And then they get up on game day or the circus day, and they just do what they prepared for. And then there's always variables, always something's happening, but they can adjust to it.
And so let's talk about the work that you've put your 10,000 hours in here, Kirk, is working with CFOs and helping them grow. Before we do that, though, CFOs, chief financial officers, what makes a good CFO outside of like the obvious, their ability to crunch numbers? What to use the secret sauce to a great CFO?
For us, it's CFOs who have a learning mindset. Because this area, competitive growth businesses are moving so fast. So if a CFO has a learning mindset and they learn to have that chief level communication where they ask questions, that CEO really find out what's going on before they jump to conclusion. And then with us, it's a 3-person team. So CFOs are not individual contributors limited by their own comfort zone. They're actually integrated with a team. So they go way beyond what one person could ever do on their own. That makes for us a great CFO. And it's probably 1 out of 17 that can work the way we do. And we literally came to this point through experience. What really works for the CEO clients that we're committed to.
And it's funny too, the way I look at it is it's almost like a chicken and the egg type thing, because a lot of times CFOs are not part of the decision-making process. They're brought in after the fact. But then if you have this growth mindset CFO, you want them there. Talk to me about that delicate balance of having the right CFO who can be part of those big decisions.
If it's the right CEO where they're both strategic and they are roll up your sleeves, hands-on, do the work, the earlier they get involved is, first let's figure out, CEO, where do you want to land? What's your destination? Both in terms of what you're doing with your time, the size of the business. And then the second thing is, why is that important to the CEO? Because we got to make sure there's a strong motivation to get the outcome. Otherwise, we'll hit a stall point along the journey, and it's not good for anybody. So we got the CEO's objective, we got their motivation, and then we figure out what is that financial flight plan to go from here to there, that multi-year financial flight plan. And then invariably there's different decisions, like what is our approach to the marketplace? How do we do sales? How do we do lead generation? And there's different options for the CEO. So we can look at that from a growth CFO lens. You start out with their client segmentation all the way through, client segmentation, the right pricing strategy, the right alignment of the sales and lead generation team. So the more that we're fully integrated, the CEO is making decisions with the numbers between different alternatives, and then the follow through when they implement whatever plan they choose, you can literally see with the numbers, month to month, at the very least month to month, maybe weekly, is the plan on target or is it off target? And then teach managers to make those flight adjustments every day proactively. So the more we're integrated, you're having that kind of clarity on the front end of where we're going, what the path is, then that you're teaching the managers and team members to execute with the numbers so that they know if they're on or off target literally every day. That's a better outcome versus after the fact, just being in the back office, doing the necessary evil stuff, preparing financials is controller work, not CFO work.
Is this a new dynamic, by the way, Kirk? I always felt for many years the CFO was sort of relegated to the sidelines and was in the back room crunching the numbers with like a little monocle in their eye. But all of a sudden, you're seeing a lot of these CFOs, especially with that growth mindset, being involved in big decisions. Is this something new, or is this just something that maybe people are noticing more and more?
It really is. Historically, traditional CFOs have been in the back office, not front stage, with the CEO. So it's a shift. I mean, privately held businesses that tend to be smaller, they don't have the same capacity as a larger business does. So this growth CFO is a different animal. It's designed to serve that underserved part of the market. CEOs of private companies, which tend to be smaller, but they need the same confidence in decision making that a big company has. So this is where the CFO is front stage with the CEO, kind of like the navigator with the CEO being the pilot, making sure that everything checks out before something happens in the air. So it's a new, more demanding world, I think, given the acceleration of technology and the changes on the geopolitical landscape, in part driven by COVID. It's a new world, and it's moving faster and faster.
Mm-hmm. It's almost like the old saying, be careful what you ask for, because I'm sure for many years, the CFOs that you talked about in the back office were like, put me in, coach, let me get more involved. And now all of a sudden it's like, okay, now you're in the game, right? That's what it almost feels like.
Oh no, he threw the ball to me, right?
I wasn't expecting that. But you are seeing these growth CFOs, they want to be in the game, right? They want to be on the field.
There's a certain elite group in the CFO world. There's directors of FP&A who aspire to be a growth CFO, and there's traditional CFOs who want to do more. But But I'm going to say in our recruiting process, it comes down to 1 out of 17, so about 5 to 6%. So definitely 80-20. It's a new breed, and it's probably growing in popularity as as professions mature. But it's the 80-20 on this one.
That's awesome. And can you talk about some of the day-to-day? You sort of mentioned it there about what Foresight CFO does. So for folks just learning about it for the first time, talk to me how you factor into this whole CFO world.
Yeah, for us, I mean, we really get from the very first conversation with a CEO, we make it real personal. We want to find out who they are, what they want, why. So we literally come into it, based on, we're hyper focused. What is the pain point that's keeping the CEO in status quo right now? We tackle that with the CEO and their team. And simultaneously, we're establishing the habits of profitability, which are financial management. Like, let's make sure we get our eyes on cash. We're engineering profitability with the budget. We're using the monthly financials literally like a scoreboard, right? Are we over or under kind of stuff? We're developing 8 drivers that make the business less dependent on key things, like less dependent on the owner. So the owner is getting time back versus the whirlwind, less dependent on key employees, more dependent on what's really unique about them. So we focus on these drivers as part of the habits of profitability. Plus, what other analysis could help the CEO really make good decisions once we have the basic, the block and tackle financial management habits in place. And all of this is in alignment with where the CEO wants to end up, that destination. So we talk about there's 7 succession options, and by tackling the obstacles and establishing the habits of profitability, which is financial management, we are literally lining ourselves up to have more options available to us in succession. Where the good news there is you get paid twice, right? Sometimes it could be a legacy type payment where you get a multiple of millions of dollars, and at that point, the CEO has the financial resources and the time to go do what they want when they want. So it's freedom.
So Foresight CFO is a company that comes in and becomes the CFO of a company that needs someone like you, right? I mean, I'm trying to sort of paint the picture on what this organizational structure looks like. Was I sort of accurate on that part?
Joe, that's exactly right. We take responsibility for the CFO seat. We're not interim CFOs. We don't do projects. We literally come in and take responsibility to work side by side with the CEO across the full journey. And we stick our necks way out. If somebody wants a 2x or 3x their company, or really increase the value so they have succession options, we'll stick our necks way out and actually do the work to get the whole team to where the CEO wants to go.
Wow, interesting. And I read somewhere, I forgot where it was, where you helped a company in Sacramento free up $600,000 in cash. I know this is probably a complicated answer to a very simple question, but how the hell did you do that, Kirk?
When we kick off a new client, backstage, so it's not taking any time from the CEO, but backstage, our team members are doing what we call a financial health check. And man, it's like an MRI. They're going deep. And we're looking for all kinds of stuff. We're looking for everything from cost savings to tax credits. And sometimes you can see in the financials, man, we're not the kind of CFOs that come in and hack and slash, but we can see things. Hey, you're paying you're paying a lot of money to vendors, and you're not getting the service anymore. That was 5 years ago. And there's legacy things like that literally had the first 90-day sprint, tax credits, cost savings, and just clean out. Man, you're paying for stuff you're not using. Sometimes, roughly a third of the time, there's a huge amount of money that literally pays for years of services for us that we can find in that first 90 days. Wow. And the funny thing, that's kind of like found money. That's upside.
Yeah. That's
something we do it well, but that's not what we do.
That's sort of like, it's like added value, essentially.
Yeah, and we like all we need is a chance to start with the CEO. We like to get to the point where we're not an expense, we're a profit center real fast. That's if we're working with the CFO and there's not more money in the bank, you probably don't have a CFO, no matter what title they're going to. You definitely don't have a growth CFO.
And for additional context, what are these kind of companies you're working with? Small, medium business, large business, Fortune 500. Who are you dealing with here?
Yeah, I'm going to call them privately held businesses. So on the smaller side, they could be, up to 30, 40, 50 million. We have some outliers that are bigger. We have on the smallest side, 2 to 3 million is a good entry point to have the capacity to actually follow through on the kind of stuff we do. So 2 to 3, but 5 million is a good starting point. Up to about 50 million is probably a good place where we age out. And it's the kind of CEO that literally has a learning mindset, wants to do better, is willing to, everybody says they want to do better, but too many CEOs literally get stuck at not making decisions, not following through. So we need to be with people who we got clarity, let's move on this step, and then we'll take the next step next. That type of CEO that really follows through is a great person to work with to make their outcomes and their employees' outcomes even better.
And looking under the hood a little bit, you obliterate the obstacles to growth. What are some of those obstacles that when you walk into an organization that are incredibly common, that time and time again, you're seeing this one thing that is an obstacle for growth?
Getting new customers, having the people capacity to deliver, proactively getting access to capital, growing and keeping existing customers, the low financial performance. I'll give you a more detailed example, like winning new customers. A lot of times you go talk to a great CEO who's really successful and the top line's kind of stalled. Well, what do you want? We want new customers is the response. These are actual examples. You got 14,000 customers. You don't just want 14,000 customers like the ones you already have. There's a segment of your customers that really love what you're doing. You love them, they love you, they get so much benefit out of your products or services. Man, that's like a marriage made in heaven. But there's, on the flip side, there's customers, man, they don't like you, you don't like them, it's not good, you're losing money. So just to say I want to double my 14,000 customer base or 4 customer base, doesn't matter what the number is, you probably don't. So we come in, we want to find out, hey, who your ideal segment, who are the customers? What is the persona? And this is from a CFO lens, not a CMO lens. What are the customers that are your best customers? And how do you know that? And then just by that level of clarity, you start to line everything else with pricing. If you're creating all this value for the customers, can we price differently where everyone does better? Do well by doing good. And then follow that from a lead gen. How are we engaging those customers in the marketplace? Is the lead gen aligned with that segment of your market where literally the messaging that you're putting out there, it is that's me, where that ideal customer says, they see it, they say that's me. So we're not CMOs, but we work with whatever marketing team there is. Let's just make sure we're super clear. So a lot about foresight is precision, using data and experience. Frequently there's never a perfect answer, but with data, experience, analysis, we can start getting a lot clearer between the options, and then sometimes there is a bit of gut, but take the shot. And then at the same time, the growth CFO is going to protect the CEO from downside. If something's moving in the wrong direction, we're going to see it early, and we're going to make sure we're not betting the farm on any one bold move.
And what is the paradigm within the way your CFO company works, Foresight CFO, with the company that brings you in? Do you work directly with the CEO? Then do you work with the CMOs? Or is it just, I guess it's probably a silly question, but is it just different with every company that you work with?
We always work for the CEO. No matter what's going on, we always have the CEO's interest at heart. Even if we got to have a real conversation, right? We're always doing it with the CEO's best interest at heart based on how well we know them. Then we will work, just like if we were a full-time CFO, we definitely work with other members of their team. It could be the CMO, it could be a delivery manager. We'll work, we're a people company, so we'll work with anybody based on what priority we're resolving. Here's another interesting aspect. So we're taking on the obstacles, we're establishing the habits of profitability, which is financial management. But we're always, as it goes back to that teaching experience in the military, we're always teaching the managers in the client's company to do even better with the numbers, right? Because most of us in the U.S. are not really trained to use the numbers well. So a lot of people are intimidated. They think the finance guy's coming, he's going to give me a math test. And you can see in their eyes, even in grad school, they don't want to be made to look silly. So we're bringing them along. We don't care what the starting point is. We know where we're going, so we know what our skills need to end up, and we constantly take people one step at a time. And we do the exact same things internally. Like everybody who comes in goes through 8 weeks of certification. Everybody who comes in starts working in the second seat before they go into their first seat, right? They got to prove themselves. On top of that, both individual and group training and learning every week. We have 2 to 3 hours every week at the company because that's what it takes to keep up and lead in some of these key changes that we're talking about in the marketplace.
It's pretty awesome. All right, so you explain to me how you came up with the company, how you do it, but here's where it gets into the esoteric sort of like the woo-woo stuff. Because what you're doing requires a whole lot of soft skills to work with a lot of them high-performing CEOs who got very successful, made big, bold decisions before you came around. How do you massage that relationship where you don't, for lack of a better word, offend a CEO or tick off a CEO? I can imagine there is a bit of a dynamic there when it comes to the relationship part of Foresight CFO with a CEO.
That's a good question. And in my former CFO life, I was a bit of a bull in a china shop, and I'd go in, measure, don't measure, take action kind of stuff. And I learned I had great people around me, like Henry, who was my CEO coach, and different. I mean, Paul Berman, another CEO, Jamie, another CEO coach, and then peers. I learned to ask questions. I learned to really listen. And then once I get it together, I go back and do my homework. And this is what the team members do. They do their homework, and then they'll open the door. Hey, I heard you. Is this what you're looking for? Is this what's important to you? And if the CEO's saying yes, then let's demonstrate visually what that would be like if we pull the trigger on whatever opportunity we're talking about. And so it's literally it's kind of almost like slow down to go fast kind of thing, where once the CEO can see it and the homework's been done, it's a tight option, and we're gonna help implement it and make sure we follow through on it. Then a couple of cycles of doing that, the trust is getting really high, right? We actually like when CEOs, even though we work on a fractional basis, when the CEO is calling the CFO on an ad hoc basis, throughout the week and saying, hey, I was thinking about something. That is a good sign to us that we're really building the kind of trust we want to have with our clients. And really, it's a real experience for two people, and maybe three with other like the CEO leadership team. It's a real experience when three people or two or three people really connect and do something meaningful together.
It seems, it's funny when you probably start a company like this, it's like it's on paper. Yeah, we'll crunch the numbers and do this, but then the human factor is such a huge part of it, right?
It is.
And you realize that after people are like, yo, Kirk, slow your roll a little bit. Was that earlier in your career as a CFO?
It was, and even when we started Foresight CFO, it was John Redmond joined me pretty early as a partner. And then we started in that second year hiring other CFOs. And we thought, you hire a reasonable person with a great background and that they could do reasonable work. We teach them our method and they do reasonable work. We found out the hard way that no, man, the level of management, the level of mentorship that goes into getting a CFO to perform on this level is way more than we thought when I was first sketching this out. Hey, there's a business here, way more. So that's one of those learning things that you kind of alluded to.
It's funny. Even though you're a growth mindset company, within your growth mindset company, you had to grow
big time.
Wow.
You can imagine we're pretty good on the finance side. So pretty good, really good. But there's other things, like in particular, like how do we go to market? How do we sell? That's not an expertise that I had before Foresight. So we brought in the value of real experts in each function as it's been reinforced multiple times here at Foresight. Just really, really good people. Some come in and get it to a certain point. Some come in and stay.
That's good. And also, you want those A players to stick around, right? That's always a key when it comes to building any team.
Big time, and it pretty much with employees in general. As once they go through onboarding, if they're not making it easier, they're making it harder. And I want people who grab it and do the work to learn new skills and run with it and collaborate with team members without undue effort from their management team. So so A players are really. I'm too old. And I'm not too old. I'm 52. To fool around with people who just aren't there. Who just don't don't have the same commitment to outcomes.
And, just pick your sort of boss brain a little bit. How do you identify an A player outside of your regular KPIs that you probably have for all your team members? Is there, and even referring to earlier our conversation, soft skills, is there a soft skill that an A player on Foresight CFO has that you're like, yep, that person's an A player because he or she did this?
Yeah, it's really these, like from the very beginning, the recruiting process, there's quite a bit. There's culture index, there's assessments to see if they're a natural match, and then there's skill assessments, there's a top grade interview. So we literally spend, it's a huge investment in finding people. There's certain people that are wired with it. It's just in their DNA that they want to drive an outcome. They're not there to show up and get a paycheck and just go through the motion. It's a different, you can see it in their eyes. There's a different thing there. And in part, what we do is because the work environment in a lot of places is so constraining. Like, hey, don't do your best work, you might rock the boat. People might be safer if you do your best work, kind of stuff. We're a place. Let's take off the gloves and let's do our best work. And you can see it. It's almost like a relief. Finally, at this point in their career, the CFO is really able to kind of break out of the shackles. So we're looking for that kind of person. And the rest they can learn, like some of these, taking on the obstacles and teaching the habits and getting people CEOs lined up for 7 different succession options. They can learn that, and they're not working alone. So the client is always getting kind of playing chess and getting the best of 3 people versus just one person.
That's awesome. All right, I want to pick your brain before I let you go. And the pace of business change is accelerating. I don't need to tell you that, Kirk, but I just need to say it out loud since this is a podcast. So, how does your role as a growth CEO company? How does that help in terms of keeping up with the business change that's accelerating? Even before the pandemic, things were moving fast, and then the pandemic accelerated things even further. Tell me about what kind of role you play in that sort of field.
Fortunately, with the clients that we already had, like John, my partner, has a great example of, he literally just before the pandemic broke out, both him, Jose, and others, they did they finished the annual planning going into the year. So by March, they already had their plans, best case scenario, worst case scenario. And so when things started going south, right? Really, I remember mid-March, man, it was looking like, whoa, what's going on? They knew exactly how to pivot. And so there's things like that. Just be ready for different scenarios. But kind of beyond that, you got stuff coming on, like there's autonomous vehicles, there's the Great Resignation. The workforce has been liberated. They learn that, hey, I don't have to be in the same room to do fantastic work. And as a result, they want to live anywhere and work when it makes sense for them to work around other things like family. And so with that, you think about how different the management style is, right? Whereas it's not based on personality in the office anymore. It's literally based on outcomes. So there's a big shift in even things like digital currency. We're starting to see some companies play around with that as a payment mechanism, and it's still very early because a cryptocurrency is far from stable.
Yeah,
right?
It's slightly volatile.
Slightly.
Don't check your Bitcoin today. It's probably not good.
Yeah, and people are speculating on it, which is probably not a best currency, but at some point we have a digital economy. We're gonna have a digital currency outside of the central bank control. So it's a wild world. Supply chains are going local, and then I was on a call with listening to the CEO of Pepsi, and she was talking about more companies are more likely to trade with allies versus enemies, and she didn't say it like that, but that's my interpretation. And so those are huge changes, supply chains, more with allies, and you think about autonomous vehicles. I mean, it's not just your car that you drive; it's taxis, trucks, aircrafts, ships, forklifts. Right? We have a client who's he literally fitted out. He was growing too fast, so he's got a new warehouse, and there's going to be a lot of automation in that new warehouse. And it's amazingly, I mean, $700,000, which is a chunk of money, but when you think about the labor it replaces, it's not very much. And so all this stuff is coming really fast.
Yeah, I mean, it's sort of tying up our entire conversation, Kirk. For many years, those CFOs were back in the office. All they worried about was numbers, and now they have all these other things to worry about. But in a way, it separates, right? The growth mindset CFOs, the ones who are the A players, the ones who are stars within companies. That's what separates those few from the rest, right?
It does, and there's still a lot of times there's a role confusion between what a CFO is. A lot of CFOs are really more focused on accounting, so I would call them a controller. No matter what title they have, that's their role is accounting. In my mind, that's controller. Beyond that, the traditional CFOs are more they watch the plumbing of the business, the different systems and
right.
Cash, treasury, cash, that kind of stuff. The kind of stuff that even though I'm a CFO, I'm a CPA, all that kind of good stuff. That's the kind of stuff that doesn't get me excited. But help me build out that warehouse where I can have a core group of people doing great work, making good income, and I'm I can service 2 to 3 times more customers. That's from a challenge and outcome standpoint. That's the kind of work that of kind of the future of CFO, the growth CFO is going to be looking to.
His name is Kirk W. McLaren. He's the CEO of Foresight CFO. Kirk, thank you very much for the time. Thanks for dropping all those knowledge bombs on me. I think your company is certainly taking that CFO position to the next level, and I cannot wait to see what you guys do next.
Joe, I really enjoy being on with you. Anytime you want to chat again, just let me know.
Absolutely. And that's it for this episode of the Forbes Books Podcast. If you enjoyed the show, make sure you take a second to subscribe so you automatically get new shows when they drop. Also, if you have a minute, I would love if you left us a review so more amazing entrepreneurs like yourself can discover the show. And please, don't forget the golden rule and treat others as you want to be treated. Thanks for listening. Until next time, adios.